Hey there, BookTube. Noah. Everyone who reads it must converse. Here is the channel, and I'm doing a Buddhist series here, and the playlist is linked down there in the description box. Today I'm going to go over the Dhammapada. We're going to touch on the Dhammapada a bit. I'll do some readings of it. The Dhammapada is essential. What an amazing, you see how thin this edition here, this is a Dover Thrift edition, how small as far as length the Dhammapada is. This is the first translation that's ever been done. Max Mueller did this translation, and any translation is pretty much as good as any other for the Dhammapada. This was some of the first, and the first writing down of Buddhist scripture was about the 1st century BC, right around year zero, give or take 100 years. We don't really have a definite time, but since before that, the Buddha lived 500 years before the Common Era. So for that 500 years thereabout, Buddhism was an oral tradition, and the monks got together periodically. They were constantly reciting sutras. Around that time, the 1st century, give or take, there was a council where all the monks, all these Buddhist practitioners that had recited and kept this oral tradition alive got together, and they wrote down all the sayings of the Buddha, all the things that the Buddha taught, all the scripture. They put it down in written form for the first time. It's called the First Buddhist Council, and the works that came out of that are many. There's a lot of sutras, there's a lot of sayings, there's a lot of stories, there's a lot of teachings. The Dhammapada is one part of that. The Dhammapada is axioms and wisdom teachings that are very short, and this is very, very popular. You're going to notice a lot in this work that are just part of common wise sayings, okay? And some of it was common at the time of the Buddha, I'm sure. And when it comes down to it, this kind of thing is not beholden to a certain spiritual tradition. It is a wisdom tradition. It is what does it mean to be wise? How do you conduct yourself as a wise person as opposed to an unwise or unskillful way of handling your life? So, absolutely essential, very beautiful, and the kind of thing that it is expounding on is wisdom. So wisdom of what? In Buddhism, the highest wisdom can be termed the wisdom of the unconditioned. So anything that is unconditioned, what's unconditioned here? Nothing. Just about nothing doesn't come from causes and conditions. Everything that is from our bodies, our lives, us being able to be human beings, animals, plants, the earth itself, the sky, there's so many causes and conditions that lined up that made it possible for these things to have their existence. So what is without causes and conditions? What is it that they refer to when they say the unconditioned? Well, the unconditioned is, for lack of a better word, they call it nirvana in the Pali Cannon, and it is just an emptiness. It is a potentiality that is inherent in all things, that is inherent in just emptiness empty space itself. The emptiness that I'm referring to there with the unconditioned is not just empty space or empty, a vacuum. It's not that. It is a potentiality for everything else to be. So there is a concept of emptiness in even the first iteration of Buddhism in India. Another thing that I would touch on, and we'll see through some of the readings here in a minute, that the kind of wisdom that it is pointing out is wisdom of what is in Buddhism called the three marks. The three marks of existence. And I've done a video on that where I've touched on the three marks. And I did that so that, if anybody's not familiar and you haven't seen it, go to the Buddhism playlist and search it out. Three marks of existence and dependent co-origination is what was touched on in the video. The three marks are basically interdependence. Everything is dependent upon everything else. In order for it to have its existence, it is no self, that there is no inherent selfhood of something, that it is what it is without any other kind of thing. And the third one is unsatisfactoriness, that everything that is conditioned, everything that is part of conditioned existence, in our Western way of thinking, we would call that the creation. Anything that is part of this creation, anything that is part of, the universe, is unsatisfactory. Why? Because it's not going to last. Everything, everything falls away. Everything that is born is in a constant, movement towards decay and death. And the Buddhists would see it just like that and say, yeah, and then it's going to be, born again, reborn. There is not a concept of a independent soul in Buddhism. It's a sticky subject because what it is karma. We are karma rolling on top of karma in the Buddhist way of thinking. And in that way, we want to shed our negative karma and we want to build up our positive karma. Well, how do you do that? Is practicing virtue and going away from evils. Things that just cause more ignorance or deluded states of mind. So the practice is meditation, and the practice is virtuous actions, all kinds of virtuous actions. Just to stick with the Pali Cannon there, I tried to give my explanation there to stick just with, it's called Hinayana, the first iteration of Buddhism, and not bring in Mahayana ideas, even though we are already way past the Mahayana being the primary form of Buddhism that there is, and Hinayana is directly, in line with Mahayana ideas. There would be no problem with bringing those Mahayana ideas to bear on this text, but I'm trying to give, a kind of context that was for the time that this was written down. It was given 500 years before the Common Era, and it was written down right around, year zero, give or take 100 years. So let's get to some of the texts, because, I couldn't say them better myself if I wanted to, and I might expound on some of them a little bit, just maybe in context, but we'll just go through it a little bit. The twin verses, the first part is called the twin verses. All that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts, it is made up of our thoughts, and if a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him, as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. All that we are is a result of what we have thought. It is founded on our thoughts, it is made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with a pure thought, happiness follows him like a shadow that never leaves him. So you see how we have the twin verses there. We have, like I said, this was an oral tradition from for a very long time. So we're going to have a lot of phrases that match, that make it easy for a practitioner to keep it in mind, this kind of thing. First, expounding on what what an evil thought and what it causes is pain. And then a pure thought and what it causes is happiness. Quote, he abused me, he beat me, he defeated me, he robbed me. In those who harbor such thoughts, hatred will never cease. He abused me, he beat me, he defeated me, he robbed me. In those who do not harbor such thoughts, hatred will cease. For hatred does not cease by hatred at any time. Hatred ceases by love, and love only. So that's the kind of thing that we're getting to with the Dhammapada. All right? Who has not heard that kind of thing before? You know, any wonderful leader, any wise person, when they've heard that at some point in their life just once, they resonate with that and they gravitate to that and they repeat it. That is why truth and wisdom, that wisdom and this kind of thing perpetuates itself so well, even to the point of cliche. So, for hatred does not cease by hatred at any time. Hatred ceases by love, and love only. And, you know, nobody could ever argue the truth of that statement. You can't fight your way to peace. You can't fight your way to peace, and you can't, force someone to love, ever. They who imagine the truth in untruth and see untruth in truth never arrive at truth, but follow vain desires. They who know truth in truth and untruth in untruth arrive at truth and follow true desires. The evildoer mourns in this world, and he mourns in the next. He mourns in both. The evildoer mourns and suffers when he sees the evil result of his own work. The virtuous man delights in this world, and he delights in the next. He delights in both. The virtuous man delights and rejoices when he sees the purity of his own work. The evildoer suffers in this world, and he suffers in the next. He suffers in both. He suffers when he thinks of the evil he has done, and he suffers more when going on the evil path. And the virtuous is happy in this world, and he's happy in the next. He is happy in both. And he is happy when he thinks on the good he has done, and he is still more happy when he is going on the good path. Now, even that early in Buddhism, I want to point out that there was nuns, just as high up in the first Buddhist council as there were men, male monks. There was definite inclusiveness from the very start of all Buddhist practice, because one of the main tenets of high Buddhist wisdom is that all beings are equal, and that means regardless of any kind of physical attribute of that person, they are equal to you or any other person. This is called on earnestness. Earnestness is the path of immortality. Thoughtlessness is the path of death. Those who are in earnest do not die. Those who are thoughtless are as if dead already. Now, what a powerful statement, right? That concentration and being mindful, this kind of thing that Buddhism is all about, the meditation and making the unconscious life more conscious. That is the path to immortality. That is immortality, to stay earnest on that practice. The opposite of that is thoughtlessness, and that is the path of death. Those who are thoughtless are actually as if dead already. The third part is on thought. As a fletcher makes straight his arrow, a wise man makes straight his trembling and unsteady thought, which is difficult to guard and difficult to hold back. It is a whole section here on taming the mind and how to tame the mind. The next section is very beautiful. It is using flowers as metaphor and very beautiful. I'm not going to touch on that too much because I want to stick to more of the meat, and I hope you guys are enjoying this. The fifth section is on the fool. So we're going to hear something about the foolish person. Long is the night to him who is awake. Long is a mile to him who is tired. Long is life to the foolish who do not know the true law, who do not know the truth, the truth of reality. If a traveler does not meet with one who is his better or his equal, let him firmly keep to his solitary journey. There is no companionship with a fool. The sons belong to me, this wealth belongs to me. With such thoughts, a fool is tormented. He himself does not belong to himself. How much less sons and wealth? The fool who knows his foolishness is wise, at least so far. But a fool who thinks himself wise is called a fool indeed. So, a lot of food for thought there, right? Humility is essential. You know that you don't know. You need to wrap your head around and do some study if you think that you know and you think that you got it, as far as how to live and how to conduct yourself. A lot of times, if you think that you got it, you need to do more study, because before you know it, what dawns on the mind is that there is so much knowledge and so much that is out there, that what you do know is such a small part, and you realize that there is so much of the truth, the actual truth, that you could never know, that you just don't have the mental capacity for. And there's your work of a lifetime. There's your work to create that space, and the best way to do that is meditation and gaining insight into seemingly normal things. That is the Buddhist path right there. So just a juxtaposition here with the fool. Now we're going to hear about the Venerable, somebody who is worthy of being venerated and praised. The Venerable. Men who have no riches, who live on unrecognized food, who have perceived void and unconditioned freedom, their path is difficult to understand, like the birds in the air. He whose appetites are stilled, that's desires. He whose appetites are stilled, who is not absorbed in enjoyments, who has perceived the void and unconditioned freedom, his path is difficult to understand, like the birds of the air. The gods even envy him, whose senses, like horses, well broken in by the driver, have been subdued. He who is free from pride and free from appetites, such a one who does his duty is tolerant like the earth, or like a threshold. He is like a lake without mud. No new births are in store for him. His thought is quiet. Quiet are his word and deed. When he has obtained freedom by true knowledge, when he has thus become a quiet man. The man who is free from credulity, but knows the uncreated, who has cut all ties, removed all temptations, renounced all desires, he is the greatest of men. So, there is a large move towards renunciation in the Pali Cannon, in the first iteration of Buddhism, because that's where realization happens, in the quiet, in the solitude. You can't be concerned about your desires, your emotions, those kind of things. These kind of things need to be subdued, and you don't subdue them by fighting with them. You subdue these things by basically watching them and gaining insight as to how they really operate. The next section is the thousands. Even though a speech be 1,000 of words, but made up of senseless words, one word of sense is better. If a man hears, he becomes quiet. Reminds me of Paul. In Paul's words, I'd rather speak one word to be understood than 1,000 words in a tongue. Right? If one man conquer in battle 1,000 times 1,000 men, and if another conquer himself, he who conquers himself is the greatest. That is something that has been heard many times, right? If one man conquer in battle 1,000 times 1,000 men, and if another man conquers himself, he who conquers himself is the greatest. Here's a section on evil. If a man offend a harmless, pure, and innocent person, the evil falls back upon that fool like a light dust thrown up against the wind. So, persecuting harmless or innocent people, there's nowhere for that evil to land except back on the person who is doing it. Here's a section on punishment. All men tremble at punishment. All men fear death. Remember that you are like unto them, and do not kill or cause slaughter. All men tremble at punishment. All men love life. Remember that thou art like unto them, and do not kill or cause slaughter. A fool does not know when he commits evil deeds, but the wicked man burns by his own deeds as if burnt by fire. He who inflicts pain on innocent and harmless persons will soon come to one of these 10 states. He will have cruel suffering, loss, injury of the body, heavy affliction, or loss of mind. And it goes on. The punishments for evil are many, and we all bear those punishments every day of our life. It is just a fact of the matter that as we are in life right now, we are karma rolling upon karma, as a Buddhist would put it. And we have no real wisdom to understand what our real state is, except for that we are suffering and that we are in suffering. And our practice, our only way to move forward out of that, is to outwardly practice virtue and to inwardly meditate and concentrate the mind. This is a section on the world. Do not follow the evil law. Do not live in thoughtlessness. Do not follow false doctrines. Do not be a friend of the world. Rouse thyself. Do not be idle. Follow the law of virtue. The virtuous rest in bliss, and in this world and in the next. Follow the law of virtue. Do not follow that of sin. The virtuous rest in bliss in this world and the next. Look upon the world as you would a bubble. Look upon it as you would a mirage. The king of death does not see him who thus looks down upon the world such. Come and look at this world, glittering like a royal chariot. The foolish are immersed in it, but the wise do not touch it. He who formerly was reckless and afterwards became sober, brightens up this world, like a moon when freed from clouds. He whose evil deeds are covered up by good deeds, brightens up this world like a moon when freed from clouds. This world is dark. Few only can see here. A few only go to heaven, like birds escaped from the net. Most, as far as a Buddhist worldview is concerned, most people who are not practitioners, monks, and meditators and practicing a path to actually gain, a higher understanding of what life is about and to actually work towards their own freedom, most of those people at best are going to be human beings again in the next life. And, I would say some of them, the best of those are going to be human beings again in their next life. The best of those that don't practice. And most of them are going to fall. They're going to go and be an animal, or be a plant, or be kind of an immovable, like, a rock or something for, a million years or something. They're going to be in negative states, if not fall all the way down to a hell realm. And a hell realm is a hell, just what you would think of as a hell. It is to purify negative mind states, because if you grab onto negative, selfish mind states and you're actually feeding that kind of thing in your life, well, to give that up causes, requires an unbelievable amount of punishment. And that is not, something outside of ourselves requiring that we be punished. We see it as punishment because we would be the beings that are referred to when going through something like that. But how hard is it to change your mind? Really? And how hard is it to change somebody's mind who's not trying to change their mind at all? Not trying to see a different perspective. So, in order to break free from a very, very evil or negative mind state, that what is required of that is a lot of hardship and suffering, a lot more than what we're under here by being a human. So, we should be grateful and practice to not go lower, but actually to stay as a human being or go higher, and practice in love and compassion for all other people. So, the last part that I wanted to touch on is the section on the way, like the path of practice. And here's where the Buddha is going to call out, exactly the three marks. All created things perish. He who knows and sees this becomes passive in pain, and this is the way to purity. All created things are grief and pain. He who knows this and sees this becomes passive in pain. This is the way that leads to purity. All forms are unreal. He who knows and sees this becomes passive in pain. And this is the way that leads to purity. So, actually embracing and becoming passive in pain and suffering leads to purity. Because all suffering is causing the purification of the being that is going through that suffering. Whether they be in hell, whether they be a human being, or whether they be in a, kind of a Catholic place of purgatory, where you're purifying yourself before you can actually enter into a heavenly spot, because there is negative mind states and emotional states that you have harbored. There's purification going on in that in the form of fire. Fires of purgatory. This isn't fires of hell. This is divine fire that, people that believe that kind of thing. And what are they doing in there? Well, they're thankful. They're, glorifying themselves and purifying themselves through that practice. So we embrace that. You have to embrace that. And you have to embrace it, across all spiritual traditions. But Buddhism is calling it out very clearly right here, and very specifically in very early Buddhism, some of the first stuff ever written down. Say to yourself, all created things perish. It's the truth. All created things are grief and pain. Now, you might say, well, no, I love my significant other. They're not grief and pain. They're lovely. I love them. Well, you're not. They are temporary. This lifetime is temporary, and then you can't keep the things that bring you joy and bring you happiness. Everything is transient. That's why there is that underlying suffering to everything that is conditioned. All forms are unreal. Say to yourself, all forms are unreal. That is a way to distance yourself from the material and stay in a more spiritual frame when looking at the world and your life and reality as it is. So I hope you enjoyed this booktube. Any comments, questions, anything that sparked your interest, just leave me a comment. Let me know, and pick up a copy of the Dhammapada. You can get it very, very cheap. It's very, very short, and it is something that you can read over and over and gain deeper and deeper insights as you go. Catch you on the next one, booktube. Bye bye.